welcome to Inside Bremerton. This is our City of Bremerton video newsletter, focusing on issues and topics important to our citizens. I am so excited to welcome these guests into our BCAT studio. I'd like you to meet, if you have not before, this is Elaine Valencia. Elaine is the first person you see when you go into the mayor's office. And Elaine has worked with how many mayors?
6 mayors.
6 mayors. Elaine has worked for the city for
42 years.
Oh no!
Wow.
But I don't think you're the most senior at this
No,
point.
Wayne Hamilton.
There are more
He's
people.
the only one.
Elaine is executive assistant to our mayor and many other mayors, and also our public information officer for media contacts when things happen in the city that are newsworthy across the state. Also with us is Kathleen Cahall. Kathleen's been with me numerous times on BCAT. She's our water resources manager. But our topic today is our sister city program. Our sister city is Kure, Japan. And also we're going to talk about visitors from Kure that come to visit us in Bremerton, and also the delegations that leave Bremerton and visit Kure. We are also going to talk about exchange students, students that can leave Bremerton and stay in Kure, and also students that come from Kure to visit us. Our sister city program is huge. Elaine, give us a little bit of history of the sister city program. When did it begin?
So we established a relationship with our sister city in 1969. It began with a Lions Club member from Kure who had met a Lions Club member from Bremerton, and they thought our cities were similar, both on a port, and they wanted to establish a sister city relationship. It became formal in 1969.
Awesome. So what are the similarities? Kure is, do they have a shipyard there?
Yes.
And so they have a port there.
Yes.
They're on the water, of course.
Yes.
But their population is about 4 times ours,
Yes.
or more.
Right.
So they're
230,000.
230,000.
And ours is 40.
I just learned that from Josh Farley, that Bremerton has just passed 40,000 or
Right.
reached 40,000 in population. But it is really the shipyard attraction being on the water. Well, that's really cool. So the Lions Club is heavily involved, is that correct,
Right. The
Mayor?
Lions Club is our partner and our sponsor.
So what does the Lions Club do as a partner and a sponsor? What's their responsibilities?
They, well, we send 3 students to Kure every summer, and the Lions Club pays half of the airfare. And they also host a welcome party, a farewell party, and they're heavily involved with all the planning when we have a delegation visit.
How often does a delegation come to Bremerton, and how often do we have a delegation go there, Elaine?
Typically, we celebrate every 5 years on a 5-year anniversary. So they come every 5 years, and we go see them every 5 years.
How many times have you gone to Kure?
I've gone twice.
Lucky girl. And you're lucky enough to have your sister go with
And
you.
my sister went with me, so it was a lot of fun.
Lots of fun. Let's talk about exchange students. Currently, we are in need of host families for starting July 25th. If you're interested, you're going to see public service announcement. How does that process work? Let's talk about Bremerton kids going to Kure. How does that process work, Elaine?
So the program to be an exchange student to Kure is open to students at Bremerton High, Central Kitsap High School, Olympic High School, and Kalahauya Secondary School. So we accept applications starting in about February. They're due right around spring break time. The counselors, the Career Center has applications. I have applications in the mayor's office. There are applications also on our website. So they fill out the applications, get them in right around spring break by the deadline, and then every student that applies is interviewed, and then we select 3.
Is it a pretty rigorous process? What are you looking for in students to send them over? What are you looking for?
We're looking for students who are outgoing, maybe a little independent, because they're kind of thrown into a situation where they have no, parents or adults, and we don't want them to be homesick. We want them to have an interest in Japan and a passion for wanting to go.
That's awesome. So do you interview along with Lions Club members? Are those?
Oh yes, the Lions Club is very involved with
Yeah.
the interview process.
Yeah, that's great. So we then send 3 students, and then 3 students come from Kure.
Right.
And that's also a summer, and it's also every year.
Right,
It's
every year.
It's not every 5 years. Every year we get 3 students from Kure.
Right, and we have 3 girls coming July 25th.
That's awesome. So remember, if you know a student, what age of students are we looking to send?
They're usually about 16 years old. They're in their break right between their junior and senior year.
Junior and senior year, which makes a lot of sense. If you're interested, go to the city's website. Keep that in your back pocket for next year, because we're always looking for students. And then we have the students coming soon, very soon, and
Yes.
we're looking for housing for them. So, Elaine, when you visited Kure, what was the biggest impression? Like the very first time you were there, what was the biggest impression you remember?
I just remember the people being very polite, and all of the people that are involved with the Sister City program on the other side value the program highly, and they treated us like we were all VIPs, like we were royalty. I mean, they were just so good to us, and seemed really sincere.
Yeah. Is the teacher exchange program? Tell us a little bit
Not
about
really
that.
an exchange. The City of Kure runs their school system, and they teach English starting in their 7th grade, clear through high school. So for 5 years, they teach English. And it's taught by Japanese teachers, but they need someone to help them in the classroom that's an English-speaking person. So for many years, we have sent to them every year someone from Bremerton to help the teachers in the school system teach English.
And it's still very active, that
oh,
program?
Yeah, it's very active.
Great,
They go
great.
for a year, they sign a year, a commitment, and then if they want to stay, and if Kure wants them to stay, they can stay for a total of 3. Most all of the teachers that we have sent have stayed for the total of 3 years.
Great. Another great program with our sister city that I almost forgot to mention. Kathleen. Kathleen is our water resources manager, but the reason she's here is to talk about our sister city program. Kathleen has hosted a young person from Kure, and Kathleen just recently returned from Kure. And as a matter of fact, Elaine has hosted a family,
hosted, yes.
a young man, not a family, but a young person, almost 14 years ago.
And we're still in touch with him.
And of course, you're still in touch. So Kathleen, let's talk about your experience as a host family. What was that experience like for your husband and your son?
Well, it was
And yourself.
Yep, it was a wonderful experience. So we hosted a boy named Yuya 2 years ago when he was 17, and it's a great way to try hosting a student from another country, because this particular program is only 4 weeks, and it's in the summertime, so we have our great weather and lots of things to do here, and it was just delightful. It's a great way to learn about another culture. And it's a lot of fun to show somebody from another country all the wonderful things about our part of the world. So it encourages you to do things as a family that maybe you wouldn't normally do in showing off what we do here. So lots of
Right.
trips to Seattle, and
Right.
we did some interesting things with Yuya that we probably would not necessarily have done.
What was he interested in? What did he want to do?
Well, he was very engaged in American culture, and one of his things that he was into was American rock and roll music from the 60s and 70s.
Oh, cool.
So, of course, he went to the Experience Music Project
Right.
in Seattle. He
Nice.
loved that. He really liked Jimi Hendrix, and so my husband took him to Jimi Hendrix grave, which is in Renton, so not too far. So that was interesting for him. And then we took him to a concert, and it was the band The Wallflowers, whose leader is Jacob Dylan, who's Bob Dylan's son. So that was a real big experience for him to be able, and we were up close to the stage to see Bob Dylan's son. So from a music standpoint, he got a lot of rock and roll music from his 4 weeks here.
Oh,
so
that's
that was
really
delightful.
cool.
Yeah.
What was his impressions of the food in America? What did he like? Did he have some favorites or?
Well, we're not big cooks in our house. I'm not much of a cook. So I'm not sure. He ate a lot of what my son eats, so probably a lot of pizza.
Yep.
I do have a funny story about him. I hope he doesn't mind me telling him, but he had a little tummy problem when he was with us, and I was trying to figure out what he might need, and he said, "Oh, I think it was the clams." And I said, "Well, we didn't eat any clams." And he says, "Oh, well, I ate them off the beach." And I said, did you cook them? And he did not. They eat a lot of raw seafood in Japan. And so it turned into a funny story and nothing terrible happened. But I said, we usually cook our seafood here, especially what we find on the beach. But so it's kind of been a little joke with us about gotta cook your clams before you eat them.
What did your husband enjoy about the whole program and having the exchange student?
Well, it was very interesting for us, somebody from Japan, because we had hosted exchange students in the past for a school year, and we hosted 2 boys in different years from Germany. So it was very interesting to have a boy from Japan and learn about that culture too. In fact, we had some overlap with our student from Germany, so it was really fascinating having the Japanese student and the German student that overlapped for about a week. And so our German student got to do some of the activities that Elaine talked about. The Lions do a great job of having some activities for the kids, so we all got to
mixers and picnics and get-togethers and things like that. Elaine, tell us about your experience in hosting a student 14 years ago.
So at the time he was 17 and my son was 14, and that seemed like a really good age match because the American youth tend to be more mature and they tend to be a little less mature, so they were a great age together. And they played a lot of video games, and they both liked watching movies. And my son taught him how to play basketball.
Great.
And the boy that I hosted loved to shop, and he bought a huge wardrobe of clothing when he was here, a certain brand that he took back with him. And
like a big name brand, is that what he wanted? Wow. Yeah. We heard the mayor had our 2 city council folks, Eric Younger and Pat Sullivan, if you've seen that program recently, and they talked about their visit to Kure and shopping. The Japanese people like to shop. When they come from Kure to the United States, they want to spend time in Seattle. They want to go to our mall. They love shopping.
Yep, and they like name brands.
And they want the name brands.
Yep.
Wow. And also in that segment, they talked about sampling the food in Kure. And Mr. Younger said, and Pat too, said they really tried to eat everything. Did you do that, Kathleen?
Absolutely. I love the food. Yes.
Yeah, I did too. I loved the food too.
Yeah.
The food was one of the most amazing. Everything about the trip was amazing, but the food was just delightful. And I ate things that I didn't think I would eat.
Raw chicken?
Oh, I did not eat raw chicken. I ate lots of raw fish, which is something I generally don't do. But yeah, the raw tuna was one of that was amazing. I'd never done that before. So yeah, you get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And it was, I think one of the photographs is about the food. It was all beautiful. So not only did the food taste good, it was beautiful.
It's presented
You go and get a little box lunch at the train station, and it is beautiful. Everything they do is very pretty and laid out nice.
Kathleen, share with us what you've brought as far as these must be gifts from your trip.
Well, we had been told that gift giving is a big tradition in Japan, and I was very overwhelmed by the folks that would give us gifts, and they're just very nice. So one of the things they did when we went to Kure was they were so good about having tour guides with us. So each person, when we would go as a group, we would also have somebody from Kure that would help us out. They knew English. Many of them had either been exchange students themselves or had visited with the delegation, so they knew Bremerton. And so one of my tour guides was Takinori Shindo, and one of the things he gave me were these beautiful little camellia flowers that are origami. And
Beautiful.
camellias are the flower symbol for the city. So he had these, and he also made little bookmarks with the camellia leaf. And so these were some of the little gifts.
Beautiful.
So wooden dolls, just a traditional Japanese wooden doll, and that was one of the gifts from Yuya's family. One of the things I got to do was go visit my host student and exchange student and his family, and that was just totally delightful experience.
We want to
And
hear some more about
yeah,
that.
so that was a little gift from them among several. And then the City of Kure gave each of us a glass bell, and as commemoration of the 45th anniversary of the Sister City program. So that was very
fabulous.
unexpected and just beautiful. So
Fabulous.
so we knew about that, and we each took some little gifts that we brought to people and as thank you gifts. And so one of the gifts I brought was a little giveaway we do at the city. It's a photo, it's a magnet photo of the city with words about water, and so that was one of the things I gave to people.
Nice, nice. Tell us about your visit with your former exchange student and his family.
Well, that was...
What did they, and they live right in Kure.
They live right there.
Yeah.
So his family owns a dental clinic, and they live upstairs from the dental clinic. And one day we went on a trip. We went to the Hiroshima Peace Memorial, and there's some photographs of that. And we went to the art museum, and then another night we had dinner together at their home, and his mother made this beautiful traditional Japanese dinner, and some of their neighbors came over, and we just had a lot of fun. It was just totally delightful to see how the Japanese people live and be in their neighborhoods and eat the food that they eat, and it was just delightful to be with his mother and father, and then he has a younger sister. And
before we started rolling our cameras, we talked about comparing Bremerton living, our middle class lives that we lead, compared to those in Kure. And your exchange student actually thought you had a lot of money.
Right. He asked me if I would take him to Michigan. And I said, well, I don't think so. We'd have to get an airplane ticket, and we'd have to rent a room and a car. And I said, I hadn't really planned to go on any trips like that. And he said, but you're rich. And I said, no, I'm not rich. And he said, well, look how big your house is. It's 1,700 square feet, which is not a very big house.
Right.
And he said, and you have, everybody in your family has a car and a travel trailer and a little boat. And I understood why he thought that when I visited him. And his family's very middle class. His father has a very good job at a car manufacturer. His mother works at a bank. But they just have so little space over there that they have very small homes. He shared a room with his two brothers, and they had just a tiny little kitchen. But it was very typical middle-class Japanese living.
Do they typically own vehicles, though, families? Do they have a vehicle, or do they rely on public transportation?
they had nice cars. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're required to have good cars in Japan. I don't think they let them have older cars on the road over there.
Oh, really?
They have to pass certain inspections to be able to be used. But my boy that I hosted, his family shared a car. They had one car that they shared.
How was the transportation over there? Talk to us about how did the group get around, Kathleen, when you were traveling in Kure with our delegation?
Well, sometimes they would take us on a bus. So the first day we were there, we took a bus tour of the city, and we visited City Hall, and we were on a bus. Sometimes if there were a smaller group of us, they would have a taxi type transportation around in Kure, and then we had to take other kinds of transportation. If we went to Hiroshima or we went up to Kyoto, we took the trains, and those are pretty. The trains are amazing in Japan. Fast and on time, and lots of them, and the train stations are very, very busy. I have a photo of the bullet train that we took. We went to Tokyo, so in our delegation there was 13 of us, included Mayor Lent and council people Pat Sullivan and Eric Younger, and then there was 9 of the rest of us, including I need to mention Kimmy Ham, who organized the logistics of the trip, and she was my roommate on the visit. So I got to learn a lot about, and she is Japanese, and I got to learn a lot about the transportation system, and she got us on trains and got us on where we needed to go and figured out all the hotels. So yes, their transportation extremely efficient.
Extremely efficient.
Yes.
Really, really. So what else was a big thing for you when you were traveling?
I'd like to just say some of the same things that Elaine mentioned, that I've never been treated so wonderfully in a situation like that. And yes, we felt like VIPs. They went out of their way to make sure that we were comfortable and welcome, and every step of the way, and that our needs were met. And so it was just very overwhelming. I wasn't sure what to expect. I had a little bit anxious about this trip, having never visited any place in Asia, with all the different, the language is different, the food, the utensils, the etiquette is very different and interesting. And but that was not anything to be concerned about. It was, they are just a very warm and giving people. So it was made our trip very special.
What we heard from Councilman Younger and Sullivan, they talked about the City Hall. And the number of city council folks they have is like 32 or 33 council folks. And their city hall is enormous. And it's new.
Yeah, brand new, I think, just
brand new
this year.
And if there was a tsunami, earthquake, natural disaster, that the whole city of Kure could fit into that building.
Oh my.
That's what we heard. I'm going to check that fact.
I don't know if it was that big.
There's a control. Yeah, Kure has 220,000 or more people.
230,000. Yeah.
Wow. But their emergency management control center is right in there, and they talked about the voting process and where folks on council would sit, and that whole. Yeah, and you'll see maybe a picture of Eric Younger with the group, and Eric just towers over everybody.
Yeah, there's one of the photos I brought was Eric and Pat in the new City Hall, and then there's another shot of the overview of the City Hall, and it's very technologically advanced, and it was fun to see how they do that.
Interesting. Kure is our sister city of Bremerton, Washington, and has been since 1969. I hope you've learned a few things about our sister city, and if you have a student that is interested maybe in traveling to Japan, you would contact Elaine at our city website, and Elaine's contact email is on the screen as well. If you are interested in hosting, and not maybe this year, maybe next year, also the same contact as Elaine. Elaine, you've done a lot of work for the City of Bremerton and worked for lots of different mayors. We call her the trainer. She trains all our mayors that come into City Hall. She's our first contact you see when you go into the mayor's office. And I'm really glad you came to the studio today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Kathleen, thanks as always.
Oh, same here. Thank you.
And thanks for joining us on Inside Bremerton. We'll see you next time.